Howdy everybody, welcome back to my channel Passion Theory, where I share with you some of my passions, this one being spooky things and spooky stories told by me that happened to me. We are now telling the stories that happened to me. So last time I told you a really creepy nightmare I had and why I think it wasn't a normal nightmare. And now I'll tell you some more things that happened in the big spooky White House that I'm obsessed with and want to buy. And went to contact the family, whoever lives there now, and say, hey, do weird things happen to you in this house? Because this house freaked me out. Now I'm older and I do know how to get rid of spooky things, and I would love to buy the house and show that stupid thing that scared me when I was little that I could kick its butt. And I think it's a vengeance thing. I want to buy the house and get rid of the bad things in the house and make the house awesome. And then probably sell it after that. I really think it's a vengeance thing. Anyway, so other weird things that happened in this house. So I told you guys about the holes in the walls where the intercoms used to be. And that the holes in the walls connected everything up to the attic. And you could crawl around because it was a huge space in the walls. I should have, like, if it was nowadays, I would have explored all in there. I know there's bats in there, but I would have explored all in there to see if there was anything else, like, hidden in the walls. Because there probably was. There was probably, like, I don't know, stuff from when it was a fire department in the walls. I don't know, but I love that kind of stuff now. And I'm not nearly as easily scared by spooky things now because I know how to, like, make the spooky things go away, so I don't care. But yes. So, the panels, the wall panels in my room. In every room in the house, there was the wooden wall panel to cover up the hole. And they didn't do a very good job of, like, trying to make it, it was just painted the same color, but it was just a square that was, like, plopped on over, like, this oval hole. The hole was like this, about this big, and then it had, like, a square rectangle that was just stuck over it, just a wooden panel that was painted the same color as the wall. So they didn't even try to, like, patch it or match it. And it was screwed on 4 corners with screws. Now, after I moved in, I noticed that it wasn't quite, like, there was only, like, 2 screws holding it on. Like, the 2 bottom screws were missing, and then, like, the top corner screw was, like, half out, and the other one was screwed in, the other top corner was screwed in all the way. Well, I didn't notice, my parents did when they were, like, checking out the room, childproofing it and everything. So my dad, like, got new screws and screwed it all back together and everything. And, so one day I was, like, hanging out and I was getting this, like, creepy feeling like something was watching me from this stupid wall panel thing. Like, the panel in the wall. I felt like there was something on the other side of this. Like, I was just playing, and out of nowhere, you know how, like, you feel like when you feel like somebody's looking at you, so you turn and, like, someone will be staring at you? It was like that. Like, it felt like something was staring at me. So I was, like, looking around trying to, like, is my brother in the doorway? No. Like, looking around, and then I realized the feeling was coming from that wall panel. So I was like, huh, that's kind of weird. And I, like, kind of got closer to it because, I don't know, I felt like as long as that panel was there, for some reason I felt like as long as the panel was there, I was safe. So I just kind of got closer to it because, 1, I had Charlie back up if anything did go down. 2, kids, when weird spooky stuff happens to kids, half of the time they don't register it as out of the ordinary, really. And 3, you gotta remember, the scariest thing in my life has been and will always be my mom. I was not afraid of this thing really all that much, like, doing me physical harm, because I was used to physical harm. So I went closer to it to kind of, like, figure out why this panel was. I was curious as to why the panel was making me feel uncomfortable. And as I got closer to the panel, I was hearing, like, this sound, like this, like, not grinding, but like a wood scratching sound almost, like a squeaking sound, kind of like a scratching squeak. And So I got closer to it, and I figured maybe the bats were behind the wall doing something, and maybe that's what freaked me out, was that I was hearing the little scritchies, and I was like, okay, whatever. But I got over to it, and I noticed when I was over there that the screw, one of the bottom screws, was turning, and it was like coming out of the wall. And I sat there and watched the screw turn and then fall. And then the next screw started turning. And I ran out of the room. I ran out of this room. I screamed. I did not call Charlie. I did not keep my cool. I went to go find my dad. I couldn't find my dad. I found my mom. My mom came up. She put the screws back in. She said something or did something, and the feeling went away. She said, don't worry about it. You know, it can't, nothing can hurt you. Because I told her, I was like, the screws started unscrewing. I saw them unscrew. And she was just like, okay. Like, nothing fazed her. I don't know if she didn't believe me, but I mean, considering how much stuff she went through, she probably did believe me. And she was just like, okay, it's fine. It's just screws unscrewing. Just tell me if it happens again. We'll keep the screws in and it can't get you. I think she even like glued the screws down or something. This happened several times. Several times to the point where my mom just gave me a screwdriver so I could screw it back in myself. And that's how we dealt with that. Other things that happened in my room were, this is just my room. We're not going to do the other parts of the house yet. The other things that would happen in my room were I would go to school. Like, my mom would come in the room and wake me up for school, and I'd get dressed, or my aunt would. But I know specifically when my mom did, my mom would, like, you know, come and get me and stuff. And I had so many stuffed animals. I had tons of stuffed animals, and how I liked to keep them was, it was a huge room, and I would have them going around the perimeter of my walls, like looking all for their back to the walls, looking in. So that way they were protecting my room, because I felt like I was making them be sentinels, right? And so this was normal. And then I would go to school, and then my mom says that sometimes she'd come to put my laundry away or something like that, and she'd come into the room, and the stuffed animals that she saw, just how I had them, would be in disarray. Like, they'd just be tossed. A couple of them, sometimes almost all of them, would be tossed all around the room. And she just picked them up and put them back. That's how she just put them back. Occasionally when I got home, they'd be like that, and I figured the dog broke into my room or something. The dog did not go into my room. It wasn't allowed up in my room, and like the door, I kept my door shut so it wouldn't go in my room and get my stuffed animals. But yeah, I just figured it had gotten in and someone took it out. I didn't think anything of it. Occasionally there'd be stuffed animals on my bed I didn't put there. I figured my mom put them there. She never put them there. My aunt and my mom both verified later that they never touched my stuffed animals. I think my mom said the freakiest thing was that one time she came into the room and there was a circle of stuffed animals on my bed. And she knows it wasn't like that when I left. And she knows that she was the only one, like, in the house at the time. So, and she just picked them up and put them back in their missing spots. Like, again, she didn't, this kind of stuff did not faze her very much. This is the point where stuff like that doesn't faze me very much anymore either. Nothing's happened to me in like years. Since my kid's been born, nothing. We haven't been in any haunted houses. I made sure that every place we've lived since he's been born hasn't had any kind of any weird feeling in it before we move in, because I don't want him to have to go through all that stuff. Because I know our family attracts that kind of stuff. And I don't want him to have to go through all the weird, creepy stuff when he's an adult. You know, if he goes through it when he's an adult, that's easier to deal with, I think. So let's see, other things that would happen. This happened like 3 times. Uh, you know when you're like falling asleep and you dream about like tripping or something, and then you kind of like, you just as you're falling asleep and you dream you're tripping or something, and then your body kind of like jerks and it wakes you up for a second, and then you're like, oh, that was annoying, and then you go back to sleep. That happened occasionally, and I would jerk, but it wouldn't be like a normal jerk. I'd jerk, and then it would feel like I fell like a foot onto my bed, like almost like I was floating above my bed. And then like when I jerked and woke up, I fell, because I would jerk and I'd be there, and then all of a sudden there'd be like this big, I'd feel like I was falling, and there'd be a big impact. Now, I'm not sure if I was actually floating over the bed. I never saw myself floating over the bed. My eyes were closed when I made the impact. It just was weird. I've never had that happen since. I still have like the occasional, like, I'll jerk and I'll wake myself up, but I've never had that impacty feeling again since then. So there you go. So I think that's everything about the room that I stayed in. Another thing that would happen are the lights would turn on and off by themselves. Sometimes the lights would just turn on and off. Sometimes the switches would turn on and off, like would flick on and off. The TV would turn on and off, change channels, that kind of stuff. Usually when you were alone in the room, if the TV was on, it would turn off, or if it was off, it would turn on. It usually liked to turn on to like the static channels, like channels no one had been watching, just a random static channel, and the static freaked me out. I always thought something was trying to communicate to me through the static or form in the static, and I would turn the TV off and just like run out of the room. So yeah, that would happen quite often. If you were in the attic and you looked out the attic window at our swing, the swing would always be swinging. But if you left the attic and went and looked out a different window, the swing was not swinging. Every time. Every single time. Trying to remember, because so much stuff happened there, but stuff happened later because my aunt and uncle moved from that house, but then later they moved back in. So I'm trying to like separate the things, because the next time I moved in there, I didn't move in there, but the next time I was at that house, I was like 10. My cat's got the zoomies. It's like 10 or 12 the next time I interacted with that house. So that's a big leap in like thinking capabilities and stuff. Occasionally I would see my stuffed animals move. More like, not like moving a hand or something, more like they would fall over and then like scoot, like they weren't moving like this. It was like something was dragging them. Like the stuffed animal itself didn't look like it was moving. It looked like something knocked it over and then started dragging it. Usually it'd only be like a couple feet. I trying to think of anything else. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else that I can remember. I know a lot more happened. I know things were happening every day to the point that I can't remember. That's just what I remember the most. At the time, I would tell my aunt these stories, and she told me I was crazy. She literally said, there's no such thing as a ghost, you're crazy. Like my whole life growing up. Later, I found out that she was also experiencing things in the house, and she was just being a jerk and telling me that because she didn't want to deal with me being scared. Never once did I go and wake them up. I didn't have remember, my parents are outside. They're outside in a trailer. They don't live in the same house as me. And my aunt and uncle are not the kind of people you can wake up if you're scared in the middle of the night. You just deal with it. It's one of those things where I would just stay up all night if I was scared. Just go turn on my light and stay up till the morning if something weird happened at night. What are you doing over there, Kali? Look at her doing cat stuff. So yeah, I know a bunch of stuff happened. I know stuff happened to my brother. He doesn't talk about what happened to him in that house other than the attic being extremely uncomfortable. I do know my brother, he did not know this. I told him later. Me and my mom would sometimes hear at night, like, because my mom would be putting me to bed, or she'd be coming to check on us, or because, you know, she stayed up later than us, and she'd be doing stuff like making our lunch for the school the next day and stuff while we're in bed because it's past our bedtime. And the kitchen is right next to the door for the big garage. There's like a door to the outside in the living room, and then there's a living room where the door is for the outside, and then there's a kitchen, and there's a door in the kitchen that goes out to the garage. So sometimes she would hear like thumping noises out in the garage, and she would go out there, and my brother would be sleepwalking up and down the garage stairs that led up to the attic. And I caught my brother a couple of times because at night, sometimes when I was scared, that's where I would go. I would sneak through my aunt and uncle's room and at night, through the attic at night, to go to my brother's room to tell him something that happened to me. And a couple of times, instead of him being in his room, he was sleepwalking up and down the attic stairs. And yes, you can wake up a sleepwalker. It doesn't harm them. It's actually better to do it if they're doing something dangerous. Yeah, it is a myth that you shouldn't wake up a sleepwalker. But my brother doesn't remember any of this, and I told him when I was about 20, I told him, oh, hey, remember the White House, blah, blah, blah. I was trying to get some stories from him about it, and he was just like, that attic room, oh my gosh, the attic was just so full of negativity. I don't know what happened in that attic, but something had to have happened in that attic. I don't know if somebody locked somebody in the room I stayed in. My room was fine, but I made it that way. But it was originally just as bad. You know, he said stuff like that. He didn't say much though. He was like, it was just normal weird stuff is what he said from what I remember. So I know stuff happened to him too. But he was actually really freaked out when I was like, yeah, I used to sleepwalk up and down those attic garage stairs. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, me and Mom, you can ask Mom. We woke you up a couple of times and took you to your room. You were sleepwalking up and down those stairs. He was like, don't know. He's like, no, there's no way. And I'm like, yeah, you definitely were. And he was just like, that freaked him out. That freaked him out really bad. Let's see. And I found out that my aunt actually used to like see or heard. She won't talk about it to me. Like she doesn't talk about spooky stuff typically. She always told me I was nuts, and then later she started like saying, oh, this and this happened, like when I was like later on in life. But at the time, no. So these are things she told my mom and my brother, is that I can't remember if she said she saw or she heard like a little girl in the house that wasn't me, like when I was at school and stuff. So I think she just heard it. They had to have been experiencing things in this house. It was so active. There was not a day, not only like a day when something wouldn't happen, but like multiple things a day. And I mean, yeah, there was like footsteps up and down all the stairs. There was like voices. There was, but I can't remember. It happened so often. I'm just telling you the things that stand out, that I can really remember about the place. This is the White House where my mom and brother saw a big UFO. It was in one of my other things. I do remember something really weird. I remember one time I was really hungry, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I went downstairs to get a glass of water and something to eat. Because I've always had to sleep with water next to me, because I wake up in the middle of the night with a dry throat and I'll like choke and not be able to breathe very well and stuff if I don't have water to drink. And so I won't be able to go back to sleep unless I have it. And my water was gone because it happened multiple times at night. So I went up to go get a glass of water and to go get something to eat because I was starving for some reason. And I was in the kitchen by myself, and I thought I heard something out the kitchen window. And I looked out the kitchen window, and out in the yard, I thought I saw a tiger, like just walking around the yard. And I thought, that's weird. Maybe it escaped from a zoo. And then I went back to bed. I don't know what that was. Maybe it was like an elk that had weird striping or light on it. That was something I remembered, like, when I was, like, in middle school. I was like, wait a minute. Because I was telling my mom, I'm like, yeah, like, we were talking about weird things that happened in that house. And I was like, yeah, there was this time I saw a tiger. That was kind of weird. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, yeah, I went to get some food, and there was a tiger in the yard. And she's like, no, there's no way there was a tiger in the yard. And I was like, you're probably right. Maybe I saw a puma, like a mountain lion, because there were mountain lions up on the mountain behind the house. I have no explanation for that one. And no, I wasn't dreaming. I was definitely awake, getting my food. I have a history of hearing things outside and looking out the window, and I should not look out the window. Especially if you hear something tapping at the window, or you feel something staring at you through the window and there's like a curtain or something. Do not look out the window. Do not move the curtain. Just ignore it and walk away. As long as you know everything's locked up, don't do it. It has never turned out well for me. So those are all the stories that I can remember about the White House. Now, we lived there not very long. Probably like, I think we moved in there the year before I turned 5. I think so. I think I was 4 and 5, so I think we lived there for 2 years, because we moved. I finished kindergarten, and then we moved. And so I started first grade at a different school. And we moved into a trailer park. And yeah. Whew. This trailer park had a lot of things that happened. This trailer park was weird. Lots of stuff happened there. You're going to like the stories. I will give the name of this trailer park. You can go there if you really want to. I've gone back a couple of times. It's still pretty weird. I try to go back like every 10 years. I should go back again. I took my husband there and showed him around. I took my husband and my best friend there, and we did like a road trip and went there. I showed them around because they have heard all these stories. And I was like, this is where this happened. This is where that happened. So maybe when I tell those stories, I'll link some pictures, because I'm sure Google Earth has some photos. So I might even be able to say, this is where this happened. I don't know. I don't know how tech savvy I am. I don't know if I can screenshot those photos or not and get them in. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll get a picture of the house. I might be able to find a picture of the White House, you guys. If I can find a picture of the White House, I will, I'll put it in the, here. I'll put it in here. Okay? I won't tell you the address of this house because I don't live there. I mean, I'm sure if I put a picture in, if you guys really wanted to be annoying and find their address, you totally could, but don't harass people. Yeah, so we moved into a trailer park, and we got into a single wide trailer. It didn't have enough rooms, so we put up a wall. It had a large kitchen, because it had like a kitchen and then like a place that was supposed to be the dining room. And so my parents put up a wall so that way the dining room was cut off, and they put a door in it. And so that became my bedroom, which I actually liked because it had some of the cabinets like actually went in there. So I had storage and like a counter that I used as a desk. So that was my bedroom. And then, because it was a 2-bedroom, and then my brother had his own room, and then there was my parents' room. And I'll get into that house, that trailer later. At the same time we moved in there, the reason we moved was because my aunt and uncle moved into a different house, and it didn't have enough rooms for us and stuff. And my mom and my uncle and aunt do not get along and are constantly fighting and things like that. So it was just better for everybody if we just split ways. So we went and we moved into the trailer park. And my aunt and uncle moved from the White House next door to the White House. Next door to the White House was a blueberry farm, and that's where they moved to. And the blueberry farmhouse also had stuff that happened. Not as much, not nearly as much stuff happened in the blueberry farmhouse. Very little actually happened there, but lots of stuff happened in that trailer. And we moved we lived in a couple different trailers in that trailer park. And but I'm trying to keep these chronological because it's the only way I can remember. I'll bounce around to a bunch of different stories. So yeah, that is the stories of the White House. I'll try to get a picture, put it in here. And remember to make room for your own passions. See you guys next time for probably not any more spooky stories this year. Unless you guys really, really want more spooky stories, I will go back to normal spooky story time. And yeah. So if you guys really want spooky stories, just comment on here that you want more spooky stories. And I guess occasionally I'll throw one in instead of other stories that I have. All right.